Okay, so today is Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. And I guess to celebrate, I've got to talk about Lord of the Rings and Friendship is Magic. That's completely coincidental. It's just funny that it ended up being on May 4th. Because what happened yesterday is Jose had sent us a picture in our group chat, and it's from one of the comics. I believe it's Discord interacting with the Crusaders, and he's putting them in different situations where they can try to find their cutie marks. And one of them is that they're like three of the hobbits in Lord of the Rings talking to Gandalf, being like, I don't remember exactly what it said, but it's something along the lines of, oh wait, like were we not supposed to give him the ring? Like did we make a mistake? And like I got a good laugh at it. That's really fun. And so Jose asks me like, okay, Pony Lord of the Rings, what's your cast? With an emphasis that the Crusaders should be like three of the main four hobbits. So I'm like, okay. So we plan to have a conversation later, mostly because like Clay is now in the middle of something. Like, okay, like we'll talk later. Gotta do some stuff. I like go for a walk. I go to get like some ice cream. I'm like, okay, who do I want to cast? And I just thought about it for like a few hours, and then we talked about it. Like I talked with Jose for a bit, and then later I talked with Clay for a bit, and then before I went to bed, I tinkered with it a bit more. So I have a list. And I'm going to just kind of say a few things. Is number one, like I'm in the midst of reading the books. I'm about halfway through Return of the King. I finished book 5. I need to finish book 6. So while I'm not done, I'm a lot better versed in the books and like the book version of events than I was a few months ago. I am not necessarily going with the book versions or the movie versions. I'm kind of trying to find a solid middle ground for each character. And with some people like Sam and Gandalf, I don't think there's much of a difference. Why did I say it like that? Gandalf. I always had a bit of an accent. But then there's other characters like Aragorn and Frodo or Gimli, which definitely feel different depending on if you're reading it or if you're watching it. But for the most part, I'm just kind of trying to find like what are the core aspects of the character that are the same in all versions, or a character that can kind of fit both the book version or the movie version if there's a divergence. Sometimes, though, I'm gonna be honest, it's just because I think this casting is funny. Or I'm like, maybe someone else should be here, but I thought of this as a joke, and it made like Jose or Clay laugh pretty hard. So we're just gonna stick with this. I will say there is one character that I don't, one like Lord of the Rings character, I don't have anyone cast as, and like we'll get to them when I get to them. I'm just like, I don't know. I think most of the good picks for this were already taken, and some of those were joke options, but they were really funny to me. And one character I have two ponies playing. It's slightly cheating, but I think it's fair. Like we'll see when we get there. But starting off with our four hobbits: Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin. The Crusaders have to play three of those with someone else taking up the fourth slot. So I decided Apple Bloom is going to be Frodo. Part of that is I think it slides Granny Smith really easily into Bilbo, because the whole thing with Frodo is, like my Uncle Bilbo went on his adventure. He had a great time. He would tell me about his stories. He's writing his book, and Frodo adores his Uncle Bilbo, wants to go on his own adventure. And oh boy, does he get what he wants. But I think Granny Smith and Apple Bloom have a good vibe with that. I feel like Apple Bloom can do a good job of movie Frodo, because movie Frodo was really emphasizing his youth, his innocence, and his vulnerability. And as a young child, I think Apple Bloom can do all those very well. And then we do see throughout the show, Apple Bloom is a character that oftentimes thinks she's more capable than she actually is. A great example of that is, I think it's Some Pony to Watch Over Me, the season 4 episode with the Chimera. I can definitely see okay, I want to go on my adventure. I've bitten off more than I can chew. But she's also someone who can be, for better or for worse, she can be very stubborn, not someone who's going to give up, which I think is something that fits both versions of Frodo. She is someone who usually has a backbone, which is definitely, like, in book Frodo, when Frodo just, like, stabs the troll. That shit was great. I think Apple Bloom fits Frodo pretty well, and like I said, I think Granny Smith makes a pretty easy Bilbo. So, excuse me. Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle, I'm gonna say, are Pippin and Merry, respectively. I have Scootaloo as Pippin, because something you see with Scootaloo's character is she's very adventurous, and she's very reckless. Like, she gets into, like, dangerous stunts, extreme stunts, and stuff like that. Pippin doesn't do that. But Pippin is someone who is very... How do I want to say it? Pippin is someone who is curious and will often let his curiosity get the better of him. And yes, like, being willing to go on, like, do cool extreme stuff is not the same as curiosity. But they both, in their own way, I guess, I'll admit, this is not one of the strongest ones. But I can see that sort of knack for getting into trouble. But they're also someone who's generally pretty easygoing. Someone that everyone seems to like. Like, there's an entire episode in season 9 where everyone's just like, no, we love the Crusaders, don't split them up. This is why we really like Scootaloo and why we really like having her around. So, I can kind of see that with Pippin. And then Sweetie Belle being Merry... One aspect of Merry, at least from the book, that really stands out to me is his characterization in Return of the King, which is, I don't want to be left behind. You know, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are going up to Gondor, and they're gonna, go fight Sauron and the orcs. Pippin is already on his way to Gondor. I hate that I'm the one being left behind. I don't want to be forgotten. And I'm reminded of just some of Sweetie Belle's episodes. Like, there's Twilight Time where they're hanging out with Twilight, but then all the other kids want to get in on that, and then Sweetie Belle was the one to be like, well, what if we leverage this to become more popular? And there's, I think in the same season is For Whom the Sweetie Belle Tolls, which is her Luna episode, and a lot of that is about her relationship with her sister and how she feels upstaged by her sister and really wants to be her own person, because she doesn't want to be left out of the spotlight. She doesn't want to be forgotten. It's not in the same way as Merry, but I feel like it does kind of work. Again, I don't think these are the strongest, but I think they work well enough. Then we get Sam. Sam is my favorite character in Lord of the Rings. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. And I am not casting my favorite character to play him, because that's Starlight Glimmer. I freaking love Glim Clam. But for Sam, I wanted someone that can fit a lot of those characteristics. Someone who is... I'm just going to go ahead and say it's Spike, because I feel like if I start saying it's like, okay, someone who's like a servant or an assistant, like, okay, that's Spike. Someone who... can very often struggle with how he sees himself. Like, I think Equestria Games is a great example of that. Like, Spike is someone who can feel his own hype, and, like, I'm at the part of Return of the King about, like, the great elf warrior that's gonna storm, like, this orc place that's gonna rescue Frodo. Like, if you know, that's really funny. Like, Sam at times can kind of believe his own hype, but for the most part, Sam is someone that does have a lot of doubts about who he is and what his role is in all of this. But as long as he can help Frodo, as long as he can assist and protect his master, as long as the job gets done, he will do whatever it takes. And I think Spike really does kind of fit that. And I do like that it does kind of complete it where all the hobbits are played by kid characters. It was really funny because both times when I brought it up, both Jose and Clay are like, oh, so I guess Babs is going to be Sam. I'm like, I mean, I guess in that sense, like, this is another child character, but that's not who I'm thinking. Babs is uncast. We do have another child character coming up later. Do I want to spoil that now? No, we'll get to that later. But so that's who I have as the 4 main hobbits. So then, rounding out the rest of the Fellowship, Gandalf the Grey I have as Twilight Sparkle. I get it. Star Swirl feels like the easy pick here. Like, this is the actual, like, old court wizard. Was probably actually inspired by Gandalf. That would not surprise me at all. Or I could see the argument for someone like Celestia or Luna, you know, the kind of closest we have to, like, an angel, or, like, to, like, these ancient people. But the reason I picked Twilight, a lot of it just comes down to her vibe. Because what I love about Gandalf, and I say this in the best way possible, is he's just kind of always done with everyone's shit. He can still be very kind. He can still be very empathetic, which is something you do get from Twilight. She is the Princess of Friendship, after all. But Twilight is also someone who is just, like, if anyone in the main cast were to say, you know, fool of a took, throw yourself in next time and rid us of your stupidity, it would be Twilight. I will go ahead and also say, we're casting Tyrek as the Balrog. And I think that's really cool. And yeah, I think if any character is going to fight Twilight like that, Tyrek is a really good pick. Shout out to Twilight's Kingdom. And also, something Jose pointed out that I didn't even think of is it means that, like, when she says Princess Twilight Sparkle is the Alicorn, that's kind of her transformation into Gandalf the Grey. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even think of that. But, like, that makes so much sense. And I think that works very well. You know, Gandalf being someone who's very, like, wise and well-learned, very much fits someone like Twilight, who has a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, and loves to research and learn. I don't think this part was quite in the books, but there's that long section, no, it's not super long, but there's a section in the Fellowship film where you do see Gandalf, like, doing a lot of research and trying to, like, just to confirm, okay, is this the ring, or is this just a ring? Like, I could definitely see Twilight doing something like that. So that's her. Aragorn, I have as Applejack. This is one where I definitely went back and forth on, especially because I was thinking Twilight could maybe play movie Aragorn pretty well. Of that whole, like, is not ready to be king, doesn't want to be yet, but ends up taking on that responsibility, because that's very much her arc after becoming a princess. But then I thought to myself, could I see Twilight being Strider? Because that is the, like, consistent part of Aragorn's character, aside from, you know, also being, like, a very good warrior. Is this someone I could see being this rugged traveler that knows the land, knows how to live off the land? No, I can't. But could I see Applejack doing that? 100%. I think Applejack would be a really good Strider. Could I see her being the King of Gondor? Sorry, now I'm actually just imagining, like, Applejack, like, the scene at the end when, you know, like, everyone is bowing to Frodo, it's just like Applejack's holding the horn with the fucking crown. Oh, that's gold. But yes, I can. You know, she is someone who is good in a fight. She is someone that can take care of herself, so, you know, you've got that part of Aragorn covered. I don't know if I would say that Applejack is necessarily, like, kingly and regal, but in a way that almost kind of fits too, I guess more with in the movies. Because there's a lot of moments in the book where characters will just kind of notice, like, oh, Aragorn's kind of in king mode right now. Or for the most part, they see him as Strider. They see him as, like, oh, he's a ranger. He's, again, someone who knows the land, someone who can fight, but someone who can lead and take responsibility. And I think Applejack can do that as well. But then there's those moments of, oh, this is the king, and we're gonna listen to him, like, he is owning it. And I do like, I can't think of a lot of moments off the dome where Applejack does that, but I can see her being able to do it. Almost like this kind of quiet nobility. And I think it works. I actually really fuck with that. Okay, so then Gimli and Legolas. Initially, I was trying to say originally and initially, that's why it's initially. I had Pinky as Gimli and Rarity as Legolas. And the idea was, okay, Gimli, it's in the book as well, but particularly in the film, this is your more comic relief character. Pinky does that well. Even though she didn't love it. She did grow up on a rock farm, and Gimli is a dwarf, as someone who loves rocks, loves like crystals and jewels and all that. I'm like, okay, I kind of see that there. That's sort of it. And then with Rarity and Legolas, I'm like, okay, so, you know, the elves, they are, like, very regal, very graceful. That is definitely something I could see with Rarity. There's that one scene in the book where it's in Two Towers when they're trying to find Merry and Pippin, and then the tracks just disappear because Treebeard grabbed them. And I think Legolas is like, what did they do? Did they just, like, sprout wings and fly away? And I'm like, okay, I could see Rarity, like, nailing just, like, the sass and exasperation in that line. And yeah, like, I could definitely see Rarity using a bow and arrow specifically. It's like, yeah, I want to keep my distance. Like, I don't want to get my hoofs dirty, darling. But I thought about it more, and I think they would work better flipped. I actually think Rarity's a really good Gimli. And a lot of that is, number one, again, Gimli is a dwarf. He has a big appreciation, like, for jewels and crystals and all of that. That's literally Rarity's cutie mark. Like, that is 100% what she is all about. That actually kind of works. I say this in the best way because I freaking love Gimli. He can be really petty. Like, I don't remember if this happened in the film. I don't think it did. But in the book, when they get to Lothlorien, they're told, like, okay, we'll allow y'all to come in, but the dwarf has to come in blindfold. And Gimli's like, no, how dare you? Like, if everyone else gets to see, it's not fair to, like, not include me. Everyone should be blindfold. And, you know, there's this whole stink about it, and then finally Gimli's like, okay, not everyone has to be blindfold. I will take it. Elf has to be blindfolded too. And, like, it's like, what the hell, man? Like, it's so funny. Like, I can't see Pinky throwing that fit. I can 100% see Rarity throwing that fit. And I don't know, maybe thinking about it, like, I can kind of see Pinky doing it, but it feels more natural for Rarity to have that kind of reaction. So I actually really like her as Gimli. And then on the other hoof, Pinky is Legolas. Legolas is someone who is known for being, like, very light-footed, like when he's running on the snow. And yeah, I could see Pinky just pronking, which is a great word. But just, like, that little sound effect she makes every time she's bouncing, like, yeah, I could see that happening with her as Legolas. Legolas has just the best senses. He is the most keen. And while it's not quite the same, if she does have her pinky sense, so if you want to throw that in there, it's like, oh yeah, like my pinky sense is telling me like blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I could see that. I think that should be really fun. In the books, there's a lot of singing in Lord of the Rings, and it's something that I love. Like, whenever a character will just, like, talk about, like, old poetry and old songs, or when they'll on the spot kind of compose something, like when Boromir dies, like, I absolutely love that scene. And from what I'm remembering, Legolas does that quite a bit, and Pinky bursts out into song, like, a lot. And it's something that I could really see. I think there was some... Oh, and I think it's also, like, Gimli is... There's not really a comic relief character in the books, but Gimli is probably one of the funnier ones, and I could see that with Pinky. But Legolas, especially in Fellowship, excuse me, while not a funny character, is someone who's really good at kind of lightening the mood, just like making sure that everyone's okay, everyone's not having a good time, but the kind of the best that you can in that situation. And I think that is very much in, like, character with who Pinky is. So I'm going to have her as Legolas, Rarity as Gimli. So does that just leave Boromir in the Fellowship, or have I missed anybody? Yeah, I think that's just Boromir. Boromir's Rainbow Dash. It's 100% Rainbow Dash. Boromir is proud. He is brash. He is brave. He complains when things don't go his way. He is incredibly stubborn. That is Rainbow Dash to a T. I could 100% see, like, when Balrog Tyrek arrives, Rainbow Dash just wants to throw hands, and Twilight's like, no, you idiot, we have to go. But Boromir is also the first and really the only member of the Fellowship to succumb to the temptation of the ring. And when he does, and he has that moment of realization, it wounds his pride so deeply that he just weeps. And in both the books and the films, I think it's one of the best moments in the story. And I really like that for Rainbow Dash as the element of loyalty. I feel like, and you could 100% say, like, she's the element of loyalty, she should never do something like that. But to me, that's kind of the point. It's the ring. That's how powerful that temptation is. And to affect someone like her in that regard, I could definitely see her just breaking down afterwards and then having this moment of redemption, like trying to protect Merry and Pippin in vain, but fighting as long as she can to give them a chance. I think she makes for a really good Boromir. So that's the Fellowship cast. And unfortunately, Fluttershy was not in the Fellowship. I'm gonna go ahead and say what Fluttershy, it's not Gollum. Although that would be pretty funny. I think Clay kind of said as a joke, like, I'm like, maybe she has Angel with her, and like Fluttershy is Smeagol, and then it's like an Angel talking whenever it's Gollum. And I think that's really funny. But what I decided to do, because I will say, if I wasn't specifically having to cast the Crusaders as the Hobbits, I think Fluttershy would actually make a really good Frodo, particularly a really good movie Frodo. At one point, I had her as Faramir, because I liked the, like, I like the juxtaposition of her, Faramir, and Rainbow Dash being Boromir, and I feel like she kind of captures, like, Faramir and his kindness really well. But like, someone else, I feel like, does Faramir a little bit better. We already have a Frodo. And I was this close to casting her as Arwen. But then as a joke, I had said, maybe Fluttershy should be the Witch King. And Clay lost it. And he's like, 100%. That needs to happen. So Fluttershy is one of my joke picks. She is the Witch King. With Angel being her mount. And so, like, when she stabs Frodo at Weathertop, or like when he stabs Frodo at Weathertop, instead she just hits Apple Bloom with the stare. Which I guess is how what she does, like, to Eowyn. Oh, I think it's really funny. So, like, I'll admit, like I said, that one's just more of a meme pick. But I think it's a pretty fun one. I'll go and do Celestia and Luna. That's Elrond and Galadriel. I think Celestia is Elrond. To me, that one was just like, that feels super easy. You know, this more ancient, wise character. I don't really have much else to say, unfortunately. But I was like, no, that one just kind of makes sense to me. I like Luna as Galadriel a lot. It's funny because both Clay and Jose were like, oh, so Luna's going to be Saruman then, with like Nightmare Moon being the turned version. I'm like, no, I like her as Galadriel. And partly, again, it's, you know, this older character being like this ancient being. I think that works. Lothlorien and its connection to the moon. There's this bit, it might be in the movie, or it's specifically in the book, where she's kind of like reading everyone's mind, or is able to like tell what everyone is thinking and make comments about that, which Luna can't explicitly do. But since she is the dream walker, she like has that intimate knowledge of everyone, and I think that works really well. But I'm specifically thinking of that scene when Frodo offers Galadriel the ring. And she, you know, just in her temptation, she goes on that rant, is like, I would be the queen, like, powerful and terrible. And I could see Luna doing that and turning into Nightmare Moon during the rant. And then when when she passes the temptation, she kind of just turned back into Luna. And I think that visual is so cool that she kind of has to be Galadriel. Saruman, because I always got to roll the R, which is not foreshadowing who it's going to be, but I guess it is, but that is a pure coincidence, because I think Trixie would just freaking eat Saruman. I think the great and powerful Saruman is so funny to me. And I feel like, especially after reading the book, where I see just how, like, vain he is. Where it's not in the film, but in the book, he has this, instead of just, like, wearing this white robe, he's like, I'm Saruman the White. But white's a boring color. That's only one color. Like, he's got this, like, Joseph coat. Knocked out my glasses. He has the Joseph, like, rainbow coat of many colors. I'm like, okay, no, that feels like something Trixie would do. Like, he's kind of almost more of a showman in the book than I was expecting. And it's not to say I don't like it, because I enjoy it. I think Trixie in that role would just be so funny. And now that I am on some of the antagonists, Sombra's going to be Sauron. I feel like that was probably one of the big inspirations for King Sombra, and I think it just works really well. Cozy Glow is Gollum. And something, because this one I can't take any credit for. This was Clay's idea. Because I had initially kind of thought of, like, maybe Chrysalis as Gollum. Like, okay, this is a character who already in the show is kind of losing their minds in almost the way that Gollum does. I'll be honest, I'm like, I feel like if anyone in the cast were to be accused of eating babies, it would be Queen Chrysalis. But ultimately, because I think Cozy Glow works so well here, Chrysalis is Shelob. Like, here's the evil bug that can kind of take whatever form it wants and will just eat anything it desires, and it's just, this is what it looks like. I think that works well. But Cozy is Gollum, number one. Because Gollum is a hobbit, or, like, kind of hobbit adjacent, having Gollum be another child character, I think works with kind of, like, the vibe we're going for. And she already has that natural two-faced personality. There's the, well, good gosh golly, like, I'm pleased as punch to help you guys, with the precious. And then her, like, villainous, like, actually showing her real personality, like, friendship is power, which of course here would be friendship is precious. That is so freaking funny to me. I really like Cozy as Gollum. Who else do we have? I mentioned you. Okay, Grima Wormtongue. So this is the character that I have two different people playing, because it's Flim and Flam are playing. I guess it's one is Grima, one is Wormtongue, because I think that's so funny. I'll also go and say I have Starlight as Theoden. So you've got Starlight, like, sitting on her throne, talking all of this shit to Twilight about how, like, man, I was like, I don't have anyone cast as Shadowfax, but it's like, when Shadowfax returned, I was happy to see the horse. I was even happier to see that he was without a rider. As you've got Flip and Flam, like, singing and dancing in her ear. Absolute gold. But I do have Starlight as Theoden, and part of that is Starlight, like Theoden, is a character that really undergoes this change after meeting Twilight / Gandalf. And part of that is that, yes, like, he's under Grima's influence. In the film, it is, like, explicitly magic and a curse. In the book, it's a little bit more vague about how much of this was magic and how much of this was just really strong suggestion and just taking and listening to bad advice. I do like to see it as a bit of a combination of the two. But I like that. And because, sorry, let me try that again. Theoden going under that change and becoming someone who is more regal, but I also do see him as someone that has a chip on his shoulder. And I very much see that in Starlight. That is her character. And, Theoden's dying words, I go now to my fathers, in whose great company I shall not be ashamed. I could see Starlight saying something like that, especially with that emphasis on, like, I won't be ashamed in their company anymore because I've done what I needed to do. Like, I've made up for my mistakes. And I like that. Also, she's my favorite character. I'm going to give her one of my favorite characters to play. So I love Theoden. Okay, let me go back to the list. For Éowyn and Éomer, I just have his big Macintosh. He's just a good boy. Éomer's a good boy. He's a cool dude. This one's not super strong. I think it just kind of works. Éowyn, I have his cadence partially because I needed cadence to be someone, and I can't super articulate it, but I just kind of like it. I just think it kind of works. Partially also, I mean, to be fair, like Eowyn is also a royal character, so having a princess player I think does go pretty well. I haven't gotten to this part in the book yet, but because I think it's like at the ending or one of the appendices where Eowyn and Faramir like get together because Faramir's shining armor. Because yeah, like the literal captain of the guards, that actually works super well. And he does. I've just always liked Shining Armor. I like his vibe, like this kind of low-key surfer bro, which is not who Faramir is, but just the fact that like he's someone that can always raise people's spirits because people just genuinely like him and like being around him, I think does fit Shining Armor really well. I got to give Clay a shout out for that one and coming up with it. Because, like I said, originally I had Fluttershy there. Let's see. This is another meme pick, but I have Derpy as Denethor. And I can't really explain it. It just made me laugh really hard when I imagine, like, Twilight and Scootaloo going to Gondor and seeing the throne, and then there's freaking Derpy holding, like, Rainbow Dash's horn. I'm sorry, it just kills me. And then, like, when I told Jose, like, I have Derpy as Denethor, he just started laughing. And when I told Clay Derpy as Denethor, he also just started laughing. Like, okay, there we go. It's perfect. I will say, I think Sunburst could actually make a good Denethor. Because I don't have Sunburst cast, so I think he's just, by default, he's Arwen, because I don't have anyone as Arwen. I'm like, Derpy would not be a terrible Arwen, especially because in the book, Arwen isn't really a character, she just kind of like shows up once, so the idea of having her essentially be a background character, the most famous background character in the show, works really well. And Sunburst as this, you know, the steward who's been at work for such a long time, but has gotten really tired, but is doing his best. I can see that. But Derpathor, steward of Gondor, is so funny. I'm sorry. We gotta do it. Treebeard I have as Discord. Because I do like that idea of essentially turning Fanghorn into the Everfree Forest. And I think that would be really fun. I very nearly cast him as Tom Bombadil. Because Tommy I love calling him that, by the way. But Bombadil being this, like, free-roaming nature spirit, which I don't remember if he straight up, like, had magic, but I think he did. And, like, the one person who's not tempted by the ring at all. Like, it's a very Discord thing to be. But I really like the Everfree Forest thing with Treebeard. So Tommy Bombi, I just have his mod. Of just this very low-key character. Also someone who really likes nature, although it's less grass and plants and more rocks. But I could also see mod as someone who's just not tempted by the ring. Because, like, I've got my boulder. I'm good. I need nothing else in life. I'm happy. And I think that's it. So, that is my My Little Pony Lord of the Rings casting. May the 4th be with you.